Hello and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. We are into episode 214. Good evening, good day to all of you. I hope you're doing great. I welcome back my regular viewers. Privileged to have you on, and I would like to welcome the new viewers as well. The format of the show is very simple. You ask me questions, I answer your questions. And in this episode, I'm going to take questions that you have asked in the comments with the hashtag Ask Abhijit. If you want to ask questions for future episodes, you can ask questions in the comments, the comments of this live stream, or any other video on the channel, or any other community post. Just use the hashtag Ask Abhijit. So I've selected about 25 questions for today, and let's see who all is there on the live chat with us. I can see Vishnu Mohanan, Rishit A, Imran Naimi, Rutvij Majumdar, Yash, Karan Nalawat, Pranav Kumar Tyagi, Shlok Mishri Kotkar, sorry, Ubendran, Dr. Atul, Ankita, Krishtaini, Ajinkya, Rashmi, Sanket, Ganore, Batman, Siddharth, Singh, Raj Purohit, Theni, Sumitram Kumar, Raja Akash Kumar, Amisha Mishra, hello, Shashank Kaushik, Satish, Breeze, Varun Singh, Malik, Parth Bhatt, Parth Mukhe, Nilanchal Shukla, Shailaja, Pidda Kotla, Geopolitical Dubai, Jai Ho, Akash Banerjee, Mansi Jangir, Anonymous, Varun Singh Malik, Max, Rajat Duhan, the Silent Ninja, K. Abhijit Chavda, Mriganka Bonia, and lots of other people. Ayush Pandey, Rudra, Om Bekerikar, hello, Rutvij Majumdar, Raja, Zubon Izang, Lazy Memer, Crafter Leo, Varad Vankar, Kiran KK, Guru Prasad, Bandekar, Bauji, and lots of other people. So, okay, let's take questions. What questions do we have? Let me find the questions. This question is by McLovin. So, apparently, we are spying on Australia. What are your views on this? So, are we spying on Australia? What's it mean by that? So, there's been some revelations apparently from the Australian government. We know that the Americans have been claiming that India has been trying to apparently, allegedly assassinate a Khalistani terrorist who is protected by the US, right? That, but that Panu fellow, that whole issue. Now the Australians are claiming that India has been operating a spying operation on Australian territory. So let's see what. Let's find this. Okay, let's do this. So here's a report from ABC, which is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. This is from 30th April this year, 2024. India's Modi government operated nest of spies in Australia before being disrupted by ASIO, which is the Australian whatever intelligence thing. So Indian spies were apparently kicked out of Australia after being caught trying to steal secrets about sensitive defense projects and airport security, as well as classified information on Australia's trade relationships and so on and so forth. So that's an article from 30th of April. This is from the BBC, 1st of May this year. Australia sidesteps reports that it expelled Indian spies, and the Australian government has stocked up its close ties with New Delhi despite reports that two Indian spies were expelled from the country in 2020, apparently. In 2021, Australia's intelligence chief said that foreign agents had been operating locally in the previous year, but he did not say their nationality. Multiple news outlets reported this week that they were from India and so on. That's from 1st of May this year. This is from 19th of June. This is an Indian publication. 4 Indian spies apparently quietly expelled by Australia for attempting to leak sensitive information. So Australia has quietly expelled 4 Indian spies for attempting to blah 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 blah. The spies purportedly tried to gain access to sensitive information on Australia's defense technology and airport security protocols, and so on and much more. And so on. Okay, so that the spies developed targeted relationships with current and former politicians, a foreign embassy, and a state police service. The spies monitored their country's diaspora community, which means Indian, apparently, allegedly India's diaspora, and tried to obtain classified information about Australia's trade relationships, and so on. You can read this. And this is from September 20 this year, and today is September 22. So that's just a couple of days ago. So, Indian spies allegation, Australian PM Albanese says such matters raised privately. What I do is act diplomatically and have those discussions, and that will no doubt be something that is raised, says Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Uh, and yeah, so that's the deal. Okay, that's the claim that is being made. That's the allegation that's being made, that India was operating a nest of spies in Australia, and the spies were allegedly, according to these claims, monitoring the Indian diaspora. They were cultivating relationships with current Australian politicians, former Australian politicians, at least one foreign embassy. They were trying to, and so on. Okay, whatever, you saw the claims. You can read up at your leisure if you like. That's the claim that's been made. Now, as always, there is no evidence that is presented to substantiate the claim. It's just a claim that's made. And so what do I make of this? Look, what I make of this is very simple. Every nation spies on the others. Okay, let's be very clear about this. When you have a foreign embassy on your territory, you have to treat it as a nest of spies. Israel is very clear, very explicit about this. If any member of the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, is discovered to have, let's say, uh, accepted a ride in a vehicle that has foreign diplomatic plates, that person is court martialed immediately. Because all foreign diplomats are considered to be foreign spies by Israel. And that's how you have to look at all diplomatic activity. In some way or the other, it is a form of spying. You could consider it to be a form of spying, except at maybe the highest level. So your high commissioner will probably not be a spy. They will be a diplomat. The ambassador won't be a spy. That person will be a diplomat usually. But you have military attaches and trade attaches and whatnot. Okay, all kinds of attaches you have, who have different functions to carry out, and some of these functions involve gathering intelligence, overtly, covertly, whatever. So there's generally a certain percentage of trained career spies, professional spies in any embassy. So it's well known. Everyone knows this. So when it comes to a nation like India, historically, historically, an also ran kind of country, historically a nation with no ambition, which was once actually stated explicitly by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, that India has no aspirations or ambitions of being a great power. We just want to exist quietly in peace, and please leave us alone. That sort of thing, and we will. That's the kind of statement Mr. Manmohan Singh had made. Dr. Manmohan Singh had made. So historically, India has been like this the past since 47, right? And now India is a different kind of nation. India's economy is growing rapidly. India's overall hard power is expanding. India's interests are expanding. We have interests in a variety of geographical zones for a variety of reasons. Uh, it, it's something to do with supply chains, for example. It's something to do with access to resources in various parts of the world, and so much more. So much more. So naturally, as your interests expand, you would want and need to gather information that is pertinent and relevant to that. And it's possible that there may be a little bit of, maybe some grain of truth to what these allegations claim. Maybe, possibly, perhaps. Okay, I have no idea. It's possible there could be some grain of truth. Is it also not true that all the other foreign embassies in India spy on India? Of course they do. It's very clear. It's known. India expelled a bunch of Canadians last year, didn't we? A bunch of Canadian spies from the Canadian embassy or consulate or whatever it was, from probably from Delhi, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong, but you can look it up. So it's a routine thing. So it's no big news that an embassy would spy upon its host country. No big deal. But to announce this and make, publish this and tell the media about this, that is kind of unusual. Usually these cloak and dagger things are done behind the scenes, away from public view. And there's a whole lot of intrigue that goes on behind this. So to make this public is, well, the purpose of that would be to apply some kind of pressure on India. And Australia, as we know, is a nation that is essentially owned and controlled by the US. I mean, Australia is a wonderful nation, very nice people. We in India have great cricketing ties with Australia, and there's a significant Indian diaspora there. But overall, if you look at how the relationships work, Australia is part of the Five Eyes coalition, or whatever you want to call it, Five Eyes partnership. Australia is one of the Anglosphere nations, one of the closest allies of the US. Uh, and you could say, I mean, there's a permanent US military presence in Australia. The Australian government has also in the past allowed America, the United States, to test nuclear weapons on Australian soil. So the relationship is extremely close, and you could, to some extent, say that the US is Australia's guarantor of security and much more. And the relationship is kind of comparable to the relationship the US has with Japan. So, if the Australians have made such claims, allegations, you could perhaps imagine that there could be an American angle in this. The Americans, before this, the Canadians have made various claims, right? Justin Trudeau made various claims about whatever, the entire fiasco that happened last year, and the relationship, the diplomatic relationship between the two nations reached all-time lows because of Justin Trudeau, and the allegations he and his government made about India. One could also imagine that there could be a US hand behind this. The US controls the Five Eyes coalition, the Anglosphere. The US is the most powerful nation. All these other nations are its various client states, the closest clients, and they'll do what they're told. So if the US wants to apply pressure on India diplomatically, it can have it done via all its client states: the UK, the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, and various other EU nations, NATO nations, whatnot. It's got a whole array of choices at its disposal. So my views are that the US is trying to apply pressure on India from a variety of fronts. The Canadian allegations, the American allegations about India allegedly trying to assassinate or neutralize a terrorist who is shielded and harbored by the Americans. These Australian allegations. It's all about creating this sense of siege. We are being besieged on from all sides. That sort of thing. So what does it mean? It means that they want India to change its approach to certain things. What could those things be? One is obviously the relationship with Russia. The Americans want India to cut off its relationship with Russia and become a complete US client state, a vassal state. India is too big, too large to become a US vassal state, but the Americans want this to happen. And things like that. So this is all part of US pressure tactics on India. That's my view on this. Whether it's true or not is beside the point. Every nation spies on each other, on the other. The Americans have a full time, I assure you, flying spying operation on India, and that's no big deal. As a great power, as a superpower, they would be spying on everybody, and it makes sense for them to do that. So if India is also doing a little bit of spying somewhere or the other, what's the big deal? I mean, it's no surprise to anyone, but yeah. So that's my view on this matter. Okay, Navneet R7931 says, considering the recent events in Lebanon operated by Mossad, where widespread explosions of electronic devices have occurred since yesterday, which is the September 17th, 18th, and which may escalate in the coming days, I have two concerns. Or questions. One, does the Indian Foreign Intelligence Agency, R&AW, lack the necessary expertise to neutralize our targets in a similar manner? Secondly, how vulnerable are we as in India to such an attack, given our heavy reliance on electronic products and components manufactured by China and other foreign suppliers? Excellent questions, very relevant to the situation, very relevant to India from India's perspective. So, first of all, I have spoken about this yesterday in yesterday's live stream, during the live chat live stream. And let me reiterate that as far as I know, there has been no admission by Mossad that it is behind what's happened. So they have not claimed credit. They have not admitted that they are behind this. But I think it's very clear that most likely Mossad is behind this. They may not be alone in being behind this, but they certainly are behind this. And if you look at the uh, responses on social media, responses and statements, etc., on social media from various Israeli accounts, including accounts that are official accounts, government accounts, and so on, it's kind of indirectly taking, I mean, celebrating and taking credit for what's happened indirectly without explicitly saying so. So I believe that it's definitely Mossad is a major player in what happened, but I don't think Mossad is alone in this. I don't think that they would have been able to do this without the cooperation and uh, participation of U.S. intelligence, because we're talking about almost a global level supply chain infiltration and exploitation. So I think it's could be a joint operation between Mossad and the Americans. That tells you how close the relationship between Israel and the US is also. So this is entirely my view. You can consider it to be speculation. You can consider it to be an educated, intelligent guess if you think I'm intelligent. But that's what I believe. I don't think Mossad would be alone in this. Now, what does this? Um, what are the repercussions of this? What does this mean going forward for the rest of the world? Well, first of all, it tells you that Mossad and the US can essentially infiltrate and compromise any supply chain. Well, the West, which is the US, essentially owns the entire world's supply chains, which is why it's a superpower, and it owns and controls them with the help of its incredible power projection ability. It can intervene militarily anywhere on the globe with 60 minutes notice, 30 minutes, whatever you want to call it, 2 hours notice, 1 hour notice, which is why all the supply chains are under their control. Uh, they also control the EU, they control the NATO nations, they control nations like Taiwan, South Korea, Japan. So much of the high tech uh, supply chains are controlled by the US, and it's not that difficult for them to um, compromise some element in a supply chain. So that tells the world that if you use electronic products that contain lithium ion batteries, you could be next. You could be, if you fall afoul of somebody in the West, either the US or Israel, you could be next. I've seen lots of world leaders carrying, using iPhones. I hear that iPhones exploded in Lebanon. Lots of iPhones exploded. That's what one hears. That is a big, big, big message to the whole world from the US, not just from Israel, from the US, that listen, no one's safe. Everyone knows that the iPhones and Android phones and the Chinese phones, etc., are perpetual listening devices. They're gathering, harvesting all of your data, your movements, data about your movements, data about whatever you do, and it's also a listening device. It's always on. It's always next to you. So it's not just that. Now it's something that could kill you if those powers so desire. So it's gonna definitely, turn on some panic bells at various levels in world governments. And I would say, from India's perspective, we are tremendously vulnerable to such a potential, to the potential to potentially being the target of such an attack, whether it's from the West or from China. Because most Indians, I believe, use I don't know, I think Chinese phones a lot in India, which, and I'm not sure if the Chinese have the ability to make lithium ion batteries explode, or to slip something, a few grams of some explosive into a battery without anyone realizing something's been tampered with. I'm not sure if the Chinese have the ability to do that. Maybe they do. So it makes India vulnerable not just to the Chinese, also to the West, right? Because Indians use a variety of phones. Some of these are made in China, some of these are Android phones made somewhere else, and some could be iPhones. iPhones could be a minority market share, but there you have it. So I think India is extremely vulnerable to this. Until India starts manufacturing everything in house, Atmanirbhar Bharat, which we keep on. The slogan sounds very nice, but what are we doing about it? I'm sure we're doing something or the other, but we need more. So India is extremely vulnerable to the potential of to being the potential target of such an attack, whether it's from China, whether it's from West, wherever. That's one. Second, does RAW lack the necessary expertise to neutralize our targets in a similar manner? I'm not sure. I have no idea. Um, when it comes to intelligence capabilities, you keep it quiet. If you have the ability to do that, you don't advertise it. You keep quiet. Uh, Hide your capabilities, right? That's what Deng Xiaoping said, and bide your time. Well, forget about bide your time, but you certainly should hide your capabilities. Uh, Now, the question is, what would it hypothetically take for a nation X to carry out such an attack on a nation Y? Okay, I'll not take names. Let's say nation X is India, for example. Okay, so what does it take? What would it take for a nation like India to carry out a similar attack on some hypothetical nation Y? You would have to know exactly where that nation Y is sourcing whatever lithium ion batteries for whatever for, whether it's for cell phones, whether it is for laptops, whether it is for something else, electric cars, whatever it is. Maybe nation Y doesn't use electric cars. Maybe it's too backward, but whatever, I'm just saying. We will need to know exactly where it's sourcing these things from, lithium ion batteries, or whatever other toasters, air conditioners, whatever it is you want to target, pagers in case. Then you have to be you need the ability to infiltrate that supply chain and tamper with the battery or whatever component you want to tamper with. And thirdly, you need the ability to remotely detonate that on demand. These three capabilities need to be in place. Does RAW have that? Well, I think only RAW knows whether it can do it or not. We have never carried out such an operation. There have been these reports of unknown gunmen carrying out whatever attacks in Pakistan. Well, maybe it's RAW, maybe it's not. We have no idea of saying that, but that's not high tech. That's you. If that's indeed done by RAW, then they are using human assets to carry out the targeted eliminations of terrorists. But it's not being done in this high tech manner. So, in case the ability is there, it's being hidden, or maybe the ability isn't there. So, I am not the right person to ask because I am in no manner, shape, or form associated with Indian intelligence, obviously, right? So, that's what I can say. So, those three capabilities need to be in place for any intelligence agency to carry out a similar kind of attack. So it's you need to be able to infiltrate. So first of all, know where the materials are being sourced from. Secondly, you need the ability to infiltrate and compromise those supply chains without anyone knowing. Thirdly, you need the high tech capability to blow up those devices on demand remotely, and that too simultaneously. So you need a tremendous amount of technical etc capabilities to be able to do that. That's what I would say. Okay, Damien Rivera says, in the context of exploding devices, can superpower defense exporters remotely turn off weapons like missiles and fighter jets that they sell to us? That's a great question. I think I've kind of touched on this in the past, but let's once again revisit this topic. Uh, let's say the US, superpower defense exporters like Lockheed Martin, whatever else, right? We're talking about American missile, American weapon systems, and they sell General Atomics, those Reaper drones and Sea Guardian drones and all kinds of stuff, right? So let's say the Americans have sold a certain weapons system to a friendly nation, let's say to Australia. In the 1980s, they sold F-15 fighter planes to the Australians, the Americans. And Australia is essentially, well, one of the closest allies the US has, right? Five Eyes. So the Americans sold a bunch of F-15 fighter planes to the Australians. And the Australians very rapidly discovered that when they take these fighter planes for a spin, and as a simulation, they try to lock the targeting mechanism of the fighter plane onto, let's say, some ship in the sea. It would refuse to lock on to that ship. It would allow the pilots to lock the targeting mechanism only on predetermined targets that the Americans have programmed into the F-15s and nothing else. The Australians could not do a thing about it. I mean, as the owner of the weapon system, the F-15 fighter plane, that you have paid for, you bought it, you should be able to use it to target whatever you want, right? But they could not. And then apparently they hacked into the American database or whatever, and eventually they were able to, after like 20 plus years, they were able to modify the software and make the F-15s do whatever they wanted. So the Americans have done that. So that's not exactly remotely turning off weapons, but that's about you know making weapons, giving you weapons that won't serve the purpose, that won't do what you want them to do, handicapped. Um, but I'm sure it's also possible for the Americans to remotely switch off, turn off weapons that they may not want you to use. For example, the Pakistanis have a bunch of F-16s, and a few years ago there was the whole Balakot thing, right? India took out a terrorist nest of snakes somewhere in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and then the Pakistanis next day retaliated by sending a bunch of F-16s across the border to target some Indian infrastructure. If the Americans wanted, they could have prevented those F-16s from taking off. So I'm sure the Americans have the ability to do that. And the same goes for missiles and whatnot. I think the Americans can do whatever they want with missile systems and weapon systems they have designed and built. So if you, for example, if India has Chinook helicopters, or India has those Reaper drones or whatever, and hypothetically, in a completely hypothetical scenario, if India were to you try and use those drones to, let's say, do surveillance activities on American warships, maybe you won't get any data out of it or something like that. So they can control everything you're doing. So that's the peril that you are under when you purchase weapon systems from the superpower. Now, will that also apply to weapons you buy from Russia, France? I think when it comes to Russian weapons, they have been tried and tested in battlefield conditions, and the Russians have never uh, prevented remotely or whatever India from using weapon systems. But the possibility is always there. So that's why you have to be completely self reliant when it comes to weapon systems. Every single thing has to be manufactured at home, whether it is a bullet, whether it is a shell casing, whether it's a howitzer, whether it's artillery pieces, whether it's tanks, whether it is missile boats, corvettes, warships, destroyers, aircraft carriers, fighter planes, helicopters, missiles, short range missiles, drones, whatever it is, you have to, submarines, and the list goes on. You have to manufacture it yourself. That's the only way you can be 100% sure that it's going to work as per your expectations. So, yes, it's a great question you asked, and the answer is they can turn it off if they want. Okay, a couple of questions, and I'm sure there are many more about this. A Snaky Gaming 1438 says Russia says that it supports Pakistan joining BRICS. What are my views about this? And Anonymous T6N says, what do you think of the Russian Deputy Prime Minister's visit to Pakistan? What was the reason for this visit? And is Russia warming up to Pakistan once again? Okay, now we know, let's understand the context, the broader context of this entire matter. We know that in 2022 there was a coup in Pakistan, and Imran Khan was ousted. The apparently democratically elected prime minister was ousted, and some other fellow was put in place. Sharif, right? The Shabazz Sharif, I think. I think he is still the prime minister of Pakistan. So the Imran Khan experiment ended. He is now in jail where he languishes, and Shabazz Sharif or whoever is the prime minister. Doesn't matter who the prime minister is. The army is actually the entity that controls Pakistan. So the ouster of Imran Khan was a turning point in the sense that it until Imran Khan was prime minister, he was trying to bring the nation closer into China's embrace. And after Imran Khan's ouster, the nation once again, Pakistan, once again went into the American embrace. And after that, you had the visits, multiple visits of Pakistani defense individuals, top-ranking military leaders to the US, meeting with the US defense establishment and all that. So Pakistan is very much back in the US embrace. It's once again a US vassal state. Okay, so that's what Pakistan is. It is once again a US vassal state. Now, when you are a US ally and you want to join BRICS, doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't add up. BRICS, the Americans see it as an anti-West kind of coalition, right? It's part of the attempt by nations like Russia, China, etc., to bifurcate the world order, and it's an alternative to the Western so-called rules-based world order, right? The BRICS thing. So if a nation like Pakistan, which is a US ally, US vassal, wants to join BRICS, it raises question marks, doesn't it? So when Russia says, says blah, it's words. When Russia says it supports Pakistan joining BRICS, it's words. It is words. It's not an action. I can say anything I want. Politicians make a million statements a year, and most of the statements essentially, unfortunately, are meaningless. So you can say one thing, do another. That's the oldest trick in the book, in politics, geopolitics, whatever. So when Russia says that it supports Pakistan joining BRICS, it means nothing, more or less. It is to keep the game going. Essentially, it's a ploy to keep the game going. What does it take for a nation to join BRICS? That's the question we have to ask ourselves, right? What does it take for a nation to be able to join BRICS? I mean, obviously, there are clear rules when it comes to a nation, how a new nation can become a new member of BRICS. There are very clear rules about this, and I think that under BRICS rules, the the leaders of the founding nations of BRICS, they have to decide on the merits or demerits of each new membership application with full consultation, and the decision is made by consensus. That's, I believe, how the new membership applications are processed. So if India were to object to Pakistan's application to become a member of BRICS, it's very hard to see how that rule can be circumvented. So essentially, it is the BRICS nations, their leaders, who will decide by consensus. And I'm sure it has to be unanimous consensus that a new nation should be admitted into BRICS. So if Brazil agrees, China agrees, India disagrees, Russia abstains, and South Africa agrees, then there's one abstention and one disagreement. Or let's say everyone agrees but India disagrees. Then once again, there's a disagreement and there is no consensus. So without consensus, it's not going to be possible for a new application to be approved. Uh, Without the whole structure, the whole system breaking down. So I think Russia understands this very well. I think Russia's relationship with India is way more important than its relationship with Pakistan, which is a fair weather ally to just about everybody, which is a US asset. Um, so I think so. That's what I make of it. I think it's just words. Now, what do I make of the Russian deputy prime minister's visit to Pakistan? What's the reason for this? Is Russia warming up to Pakistan once again? Or I think Russia just wants to keep relationships going. So they've sent a low-ranking person, not even the prime minister, the deputy prime minister, on a visit to Pakistan to discuss this whole BRICS thing, probably at the behest of China. The Chinese probably are playing multiple games. They always play 78 dimensional chess, don't they? The Chinese. They think that they are extremely inscrutable and opaque and all that. So they will, most likely, the Chinese would have asked Russia to send a reasonably high ranking person to Pakistan to continue the relationship. And the Chinese probably want Pakistan to become a member of BRICS. And the Chinese obviously will know that without consensus, which means India's approval, Pakistan can't become a member of BRICS. It's just a game to keep the pressure up. The Chinese are currently engaged in a possible disengagement on the India-Tibet border, and possibly some kind of better relationship with India, but they will play all kinds of games at the same time in parallel. So I think there's a significant China shadow over all this. So I don't think the Russians would like to have BRICS in, I mean, Pakistan in BRICS. I don't think the Russians will want to antagonize India. The Russians have very few friends, and we have a very old relationship, and relationship which has a significant amount of trust. You cannot just, destroy such a relationship by making a few rash moves. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's unlikely that Pakistan will become a member of BRICS. Even the Turks have applied to be a member of BRICS. Turkey wants to be a member of BRICS. Turkey is an official member of NATO. I mean, how on earth can you be on both sides? So there's all kinds of games being played right now. Okay, Salah Hotro says, Pakistani hockey players supporting China in stand after getting humiliated by China in the semifinals. That too seemed controversial because Pakistan is stronger than China as a hockey playing nation. Is this because of the heavy loans China has given to Pakistan? Please save Pakistan. Look, sir, who am I to save Pakistan? I, I have no ill will towards the citizens of Pakistan, towards the people of Pakistan. We were once the same people. We still have shared blood, don't we? Uh, so I have nothing against the common people of Pakistan. I don't wish them anything bad. But Pakistan, obviously, we know the deal, right? Pakistan is a problem for India, big problem historically, and continuing. Now the deal is this: we recently had the recently concluded um Asian Champions Trophy. Hockey is one of my favorite sports. Very interesting sport, very fast paced sport, and India won the trophy by defeating China, I believe, in the final 1-0. We should have had like 5-6 goals, but we scored one. Now the deal is Pakistan were defeated by China in the semifinals. Not sure. I didn't watch the match. I'm not sure what the score line is, but Pakistan were beaten by China. And then in the final, China plays India, and the Pakistani hockey players were in the stands supporting China. And the point Salah is raising here is that even the Pakistani defeat to China is controversial because Pakistan is a way stronger team compared to China. Well, we know that in Asia, India is probably the strongest team. And the fact that India was able to defeat China only 1-0 would indicate that China have become probably a better team than they were in the past. So perhaps the Pakistani defeat to China may not be that controversial, but it's kind of humiliating for the Pakistani players to appear in the stands for the final and support the team that defeated them just because China is playing India. I mean, that's kind of, you're abasing yourself. You're degrading and humiliating yourself. Uh, is it because of heavy loans or whatever? I think the Chinese have given loans to Pakistan and all, but Pakistan is now on the US side of things. I don't think it's because the Chinese have given heavy loans. I think it's because of some sort of hatred for India. I think that's the case. I don't think it's because the Chinese have given loans to Pakistan and they've instructed the Pakistani players that appear in the stands and support China. I don't think that's the case. I think there seems to be a significant level among the ordinary Pakistani population of hatred towards India. And that's something that the entire system has brainwashed the people into believing. Right? India is our enemy, India is evil. There's some religious angle into it. There also, the education system also contributes a great deal to all this. So I think it's multiple levels of things, but I think there is a genuine hatred towards India in Pakistan. And that's unfortunate, really unfortunate. See how that's how social engineering works. That's how brainwashing works. We in India, we don't pose any threat to Pakistan. We don't look, every war that's happened, the Pakistanis have started, right? We didn't start any of the wars. We finished the wars. That's a different story. Excuse me. So I think that's the case. I think that there is genuine dislike, hatred of India, and that's why they will support whoever is playing against India. When it comes to saving Pakistan, look, I think it's up to the people of Pakistan. If you want To save Pakistan, the people of Pakistan have to do something, perhaps take matters into their own hands. The thing that you have to save Pakistan from, you have to first identify that. And that entity is the Pakistani military. The Pakistani military is a parasitic organism that has been slowly strangling Pakistan and leaching the lifeblood out of Pakistan and exploiting the people of Pakistan. And there's no development in the nation. Pakistan was so different in the 1980s; it was almost like a booming economy. And now see what they've done to it. Uh, so the entity you have to save your nation from is the Pakistani military, and all the other organizations and whatever that is associated with the military. Uh, that's what you have to save Pakistan from. And that's unfortunately not up to us here in India. It's the people of Pakistan who have to do it themselves. And yeah, so I would say I wish the best to the people of Pakistan. I have no ill will towards the people, the ordinary person, people of Pakistan. But Pakistan as a nation, I unfortunately, regrettably see it as an artificial, temporary nation. Artificial, 100% it is. And temporary, well, I think time will tell us that Pakistan is a temporary experiment. Eventually, it will disintegrate when the support of the foreign powers is taken away. Whenever that happens, then it's a matter of time. Okay, Joy Debnath 5088 says, in Bangladesh, it seems that a large part of Chittagong will be uprooted. Rohingyas on one side, Chittagong hill tract on the other. We minority Hindus are also scared. India should do something for us, otherwise we can't live in Bangladesh. Okay, let's talk about Chittagong once again. Where do we have the map? Okay, we haven't opened the map today, so let's open the map. Where is map? So this is the map, and we go to Bangladesh, East Pakistan, whatever you want to call it, and we are once again talking about Chittagong, like we were doing yesterday. And this used to be a Hindu Buddhist majority area, similar to Sylhet, similar to Rajshahi, Rangpur. I don't know why we gave those territories away. Our wonderful founding fathers, or so-called leaders of independence, of the independence movement, they gave up our territories as a gift because it belonged to them, right? So they gave up these territories. Now there's been oppression happening in in the Chittagong Hill Tracts region for a very long time. The Chakmas have been persecuted like anything by the Bangladeshis for decades. Before that, by the East Pakistanis. On the To the south of the Chittagong region, you have the Rakhine state. Rakhine state, where is Rakhine state? Wherever it is, and that's where the Rohingyas are found. And the Rohingyas, lots of them have been settled in the Cox Bazar, etc. area. So lots of Rohingyas are to be found in Chittagong. Those who are not diverted into India and sent to various parts of India, those are sheltered in various parts of this region, Chittagong region. So you have Rohingyas over here, and you all that, and as we know, ever since the coup happened, there's been this concerted persecution of Hindus that's happening. Attacks on Hindus, Hindu temples are being destroyed, Hindu people have been attacked, killed, whatnot. There's kind of a pogrom happening against Hindus right now. So very, very scary situation for Hindus, which is unfolding as we speak right now. The media will not report it, obviously, including the Indian media. They won't report this, but it's happening. And you see reports of this on social media. Whenever people get the opportunity, they're uploading videos of what's being done to them. So it's a really bad situation for the Hindus of Bangladesh. And Joy Debnath says India should do something for us, otherwise we cannot live in Bangladesh. What can India do? Is the question, right? What should India do? What can India do? Can India do something? India is very capable of doing something, very much so. Um, what can India do? One thing India can do is offer refuge to the Hindus of Bangladesh. So open the borders, and if you're a Hindu, you're allowed in. Now, lots of the Indian media and various political parties will complain and create a ruckus about this, that you are discriminating on the basis of religion, that sort of thing, right? But let's say India makes this happen, then very soon there will be no Hindus left in Bangladesh, and one more territory that we give up. So rather than doing that, I would say that India should support the Hindus of Bangladesh in self-defense, give them funding, give them arms, give them ammunition, give them whatever they need to make a stand and not give up their lands, ancestral lands. And perhaps if the government of India has the fortitude, we could have we could induce the creation of a nation, of a Hindu nation, out of Bangladesh, out of the areas of Rangpur, Rajshahi, perhaps Silat could be part of it, perhaps the Chittagong Hill Tract region could be part of it. Something could be done. But the question is, does the government of India have the fortitude to do that, or is it just talk, 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 talk? Historically, even the past 10 years, it's all been talk. Remember that one statement about Balochistan? It was just a statement. Nothing was ever done. So either India should just offer refuge to all the Bangladeshi Hindus, which means that Bangladesh will be empty of Hindus very soon, or it should give the Hindus of Bangladesh full support, like we say, full support, SAR, right? Full support in terms of funds, arms, ammunition, whatever they need to make a stand, and perhaps carve out a separate nation out of Bangladesh. Because Bangladesh, East Pakistan, is also an artificial nation, right? Historically, it's been our territory, Indian territory. So that's what I would say needs to happen. India should certainly help the Hindus, but not in the sense of giving them shelter, maybe in the sense of supporting their just fight for freedom in their own land. I think that's what we need to do. But the question is very big. The very big question is: is the government of India willing to do this? It's certainly capable of doing this. Is it willing to do this? Depending on the various geopolitical calculations and all that. Well, if you look at things, I think nothing will happen. Unfortunately, I mean, we changed something on paper. We removed Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir, right? 2019. It's been 5 years. How many Kashmiri Hindus have been allowed to return to Jammu and Kashmir? Nothing, right? Nobody. So we only do things on paper, and then we say that we are very strong, but we don't change facts on the ground. That's what a strong nation does. We aren't even doing it within our own borders. So do you think we'll do it in Bangladesh? I don't think this government is strong enough to do that, unfortunately. It's all talk. Very disappointing, but that's the reality I see, unfortunately. Okay, AD Guru Prasad says in recent Quad meeting, USA said it will support India for permanent as a for India's quest for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, UNSC permanent membership. Does the US really mean it? And even if the US does mean it, how do we deal with China's veto when it comes to voting for a permanent seat? Look, a couple of questions ago, we discussed Russia's support for Pakistan's entry into BRICS, right? And I told you it's just words. Words are cheap. You can say anything you want. You don't have to act on it. Similarly, the Americans have been saying for a long time they'll support this, they'll support that. They're going to support nothing. They will never share a single percentage point of the power that they have. Okay? So it's just words. It's never going to happen. And let's say they even mean it, like Guru Prasad says, how do you deal with China's vote for the permanent seat? The Chinese will not agree. The Chinese will exercise their veto. What can India do about this? Absolutely nothing. My point is, let's stop obsessing with the United Nations Security Council permanent membership. We had the chance of getting that in the 1950s and so on, but our magnificent Prime Minister, Sri Nehru ji, decided to prioritize China over India. Well known. And as such, we lost our opportunity. And now there's nothing we can do about it. So we need to stop obsessing over this permanent seat. It's kind of a status symbol we want. We should obsess over our economic growth, over the real power that we can accrue for ourselves with our own two hands. That's what we need to obsess over. Okay? Forget about the UN Security Council permanent seat, all of that stuff. Just work on your economy, work as hard as possible. year after year after year. Do it for 20 years, 30 years, and then what? Who cares about the UN Security Council permanent seat? You'll become so big it won't be relevant. It won't even matter. So that's what we need to do. Forget about chasing status. Chase real power. Chase real strength. It's like you want a bodybuilding title without putting in the hard work 2 3 years of lifting the weights over and over again, year day after day after day, the grind. I want the title, I want the crown, but I will not put in the hard work of lifting those tens of thousands of kilos cumulative of weight. So forget about the title, ignore the crown, go to gym every single day and lift the goddamn weights. Do it over and over and over again. Take care of your health, take care of your diet, nutrition, all of that, and see what happens in a few years. You'll be so big, nobody will ask you whether you won this title or not. No one will care what title you won or did not win. The simple fact of your existence and the immensity of your being will be enough to tell everybody who the real king is. That's what you need to do. Let's stop chasing status. Chase real power. Okay, what other questions do we have? Okay, a couple of questions about Manipur. Manipur is always on the agenda these days for good reason. Shravan says 900 Kuki militants have entered Manipur. Is Kuki land way too close? Are we so close to losing the Northeast? And Anand says recent reports say that Kuki terrorists entered from Myanmar into Manipur. What are my thoughts about this? What are my thoughts about this? This has been happening for years. And this report that one hears from wherever one hears this, the report is that 900 Kuki terrorists have entered Manipur. The question is, in what time frame? The last 24 hours, last 7 days, last 1 month, last 85 years? What time frame are you talking about? We know that Kuki terrorists have been entering Manipur since the events of May 3 last year, when the whole thing blew up and the Kukis unleashed mayhem against the natives of Manipur. We have seen so many video reports or drone footage and all of Kuki terrorists in long lines entering Manipur from Myanmar and other places too, hmm? Wearing uniforms and carrying all kinds of weapons. It's known. You could see hundreds of them at that time itself, early last year. Not early last year, I mean June, July, August, around that time. They have been entering Manipur for a long time. What are my thoughts about this? My thoughts are that the border is open. The previous governments have ensured that we have this open border policy with Myanmar. And the previous governments of India, central governments, they ensured that they themselves brought in Kuki immigrants into India and settled them in Manipur, and then gave them paperwork and all that. And many of them are in very high positions in the Indian bureaucracy and whatnot, even at the central level today. That's what previous Indian governments did. They created the problem. Modi is now dealing with the problem somehow. He has to. He has no choice. So what do I make of this? It's a disastrous situation. It's a disaster, but Modi has no choice but to solve the problem. Why does Modi look weak these days? Manipur is a big reason for that. More than 1 year, we are facing the brunt of foreign terrorism. They're dropping bombs from drones on a capital city of an Indian state, and we are doing nothing about it. And there's so much more. Now we are taking steps to rectify the situation, taking out the Assam rifles from Manipur and bringing in CRPF and all that. So, the mismanagement of Manipur past several decades, 1950s, 60s onwards, it has taken its toll cumulatively. All of that will have to be undone. And so much has gone wrong. So much wrong has been done in Manipur and across the Far East, other states also. But the people of Manipur have suffered the worst because they're Hindus, right? Hindus have to suffer because they didn't convert. Now they're converting. Now lots of indigenous Manipuri Hindus are converting to Christianity. Good job. Let's do it, right? What was her name? Sarita Devi, the lady boxer. She got baptized to some Christian faith So that's what's happening. Is Cookie Land way too close? Are we close to having Cookie Land? I think we still Cookie Land. Look, Cookie Land is an artificial imaginary nation that the foreign powers want to create. Cookie Land for Christ, out of parts of Burma, parts, very large parts of Manipur, Mizoram, and parts of Bangladesh. So, are we there? Is Cookie Land happening now? Well, not quite, not quite. I don't think India will give up Manipur and Mizoram that easily, but the terror will continue. The terrorist activities will continue. I don't think we're going to lose Manipur and Mizoram, but we may lose the hearts and minds of the people because they've been suffering, they've been shot at, they've been bombed, and the government has done not a thing about it. The prime minister doesn't speak about it. He doesn't visit Manipur. The one time he speaks about Manipur is to say something else. So it's dispiriting if you are a person who lives there, right? Abject weakness from the government of India is being displayed, and that is why Prime Minister Modi looks so weak right now, and he's kind of lost lost that aura of invincibility he had. Manipur has a lot to do with this. And let me say this again. I've said this before that I think his political career will depend on what he does in Manipur. Okay, Tirupati Balaji, Giridhar, and Hybrid Devil. What's my opinion on the Shri Tirupati Balaji Laddu issue? And what are my thoughts on the Tirupati Devasthan Andhra Pradesh controversy over using animal fat in prasad? So I have not looked into this in great detail as to what happened, which organization was behind this, and so on. What I know is that it has been discovered that the Tirupati Balaji temple prasad laddus were contaminated with animal fat, beef and pork fat. Now, this is unacceptable. My first question is: has the Prime Minister made any statements about this? Has the Prime Minister of India spoken about this? This is not a small matter. The Prime Minister likes to make statements about all kinds of things in Man Ki Baat and whatnot. Has the Prime Minister of India spoken about this? It's a very big matter. This is unacceptable. I have said this in the past that India is the world's most Hindu phobic country. Do you see me being proven right once again? Unfortunately. Is the media making a big deal of this? No. Imagine this happened to some other religion. There are two other foreign religions on Indian soil. Imagine something like this is done to one of those two religions. The entire global media will rise up in chorus, and the Indian media will support them. But right now, when this has happened, this unacceptable sacrilege has happened. No one's talking about this. It's no big deal. Prime Minister is quiet. Most of the people are quiet. Most of the people don't care. Most Indians now look upon their own ancestral belief system, Hinduism, whatever we call it, as some kind of exotic thing from the past. And it doesn't really matter. Oh, there is contamination in everything. What's the big deal? Right? So, going by this, it looks like Hinduism will cease to exist by the end of the century. Maybe by 2050, maybe by 2100. Because you people, us all, I would say, I would not say you people, we all have kind of lost touch with who we are. And we simply don't care anymore. No outrage, no nothing. If this was done to another religion, the entire world would be up in arms. When something like this happened in 1857, we rose up against the foreign oppressor and we launched a war of independence. Nationwide, subcontinent-wide war of independence. Today, not a whisper, not a squeak. Everyone's quiet. I'm not saying everybody is quiet. Many people are extremely upset about this, but the media is quiet, the government is quiet, the prime minister hasn't said a word as far as I know. No big deal. Let the matter die out. We'll have some inquiry, and at the end of the day, nothing will happen. The government governance machinery, the media machinery, all of this is arrayed up against you, against our civilization. We are still a colonized nation. Do you see that? We are still a colonized civilization, and they are in the process of dismantling our civilization piece by piece. And they have brainwashed our children and multiple generations to such an extent that we don't care. We are apathetic. We will watch our OTT, whatever, entertainment, and we are happy. We'll watch our Bollywood movies and dance to Bollywood music, and that's what gives us happiness. To hell with this. What is religion? Who cares? Oh, there was some contamination. There's contamination in everything. Extremely unfortunate. I would say that we need to rise up. I'm not saying in arms, but we cannot let this matter die out. Um, Whoever is behind this needs to be brought to task in the most appropriate manner according to the laws. That's what needs to happen. We simply cannot let this matter die out. Yajnavalka says, did the end of Hindu monarchy of Nepal involve the betrayal of the military, as Mao Zedong said, and you say political power flows from the barrel of a gun? Or did the end of the Hindu monarchy of Nepal simply involve the cowardly, voluntary abdication of the Nepalese king? Here's what happened. In the mid 1990s, a Maoist rebellion erupted in Manipur. Maoist terrorists fighting the government with arms, ammunition, weapons from the jungles, from the hills. Later, much later, it emerged that India was supporting them. Who, I will simply ask you a simple question. In the 90s, when this entire thing happened, who was the Indian Prime Minister? What government did we have? Okay, that's homework for you. Look it up. So at that time, the Indian government supported the Maoist terrorists who were fighting the Hindu monarchy of Nepal. And this terrorist movement went on from the mid 1990s all the way to the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006. In 2000, 2001, whenever it happened, I don't remember which year, look it up, the entire royal family of Nepal was massacred. And they laid the blame on the Crown Prince Dipendra. And Queen Aishwarya, King Birendra, they were assassinated. The whole family was assassinated. And apparently then the Crown Prince turned the gun on himself. Very, very convenient, right? So when this happens, the king's brother, Gyanendra, becomes the regent, the caretaker king, because Dipendra is still alive. He's fighting for his life in the hospital. But after 3-4 days, Dipendra also dies, and Gyanendra becomes the king of Nepal. And then I think it's around 2000, 2001 that this happened, the royal massacre in Nepal. So very conveniently, the whole family is wiped out. The monarchy is wiped out. The Gyanendra is left. And the terrorist rebellion against the government, the monarchy continues until the mid 2000s. And eventually the pressure, I think, became so much that Gyanendra had to abdicate his throne. It was nothing cowardly or something. Otherwise, he would have been next. By the time it was all done, So, and then you have the communists, the Maoists taking over, and they're still in power. So we did this. Our government, not we as in we the people, but our so-called government destroyed the last Hindu monarchy of Nepal. That's what our government did. Apparently, allegedly, RAW was involved, allegedly. Okay? You can look it up. So that's what the government of India did. And by doing so, we turned Nepal into our civilizational ally, our civilizational brother, into a Chinese asset. That's what that prime minister did. What a genius that person must have been. Turning our civilizational brother, our civilizational ally, into a Chinese asset. That's what was done. Disaster. I mean, that's what our governments have been doing in the past. Shooting our civilization in the foot over and over and over again. And that's where we are today. Yeah. Okay, Cardboard Studio 684 says, do you enjoy reading sci-fi novels? Do I now? All sci-fi. But yeah, okay. Do I enjoy reading sci-fi novels? Do I have favorite authors like Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, Andy Weir, Liu Cixin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. Additionally, could you recommend some lesser known sci fi novels, particularly from Indian or international authors, that more people should read? And yes, thank you so much. So, sci fi. Sci fi is my favorite genre of literature. As a kid, all I wanted to read was sci fi. And as a kid, I had access to a university library. And in that university library, among the literature section, I discovered a whole bunch of ancient books from the 1950s and 60s. They belong to something called the Science Fiction Book Club based in London. But somehow this university had acquired a bunch of these books. And I came across books that nobody has heard of today. Sleeping Planet by William R. Burkett Jr., uh, Invader on My Back by Philip E. High, The Hephaestus Plague by Thomas Page, and so many more. I can't even remember some of the names and all. Um, a book by Larry Niven. What was it called? I forget. A Gift from Earth. A Gift from Earth by Larry Niven. Some of the lesser known books. So it's my favorite genre. There are so many. I don't have one favorite author. I mean, obviously, uh, I admire the writings, the books, the work of Arthur C. Clarke, for example, the guy who spent his last few decades in Sri Lanka. Uh, one of the most impactful short stories that he wrote was The Sentinel. I think it was written sometime in the 1940s, before the 1950s. The Sentinel, incredible short story. Then he came up. He wrote Rendezvous with Rama, and then the entire Rama series, which was extremely boring. Rendezvous with Rama was okay, but then the remaining three books were. I did finish them. I have no idea how long it took me to finish them. I forced myself to finish them, but they were awful, awful. But 2001: A Space Odyssey and the entire series that comes out of that's wonderful. Childhood's End was great from Arthur C. Clarke. The Hammer of God is an interesting story. The Songs of Distant Earth. Then I liked the books written by an astronomer and cosmologist called Fred Hoyle. So this guy was an actual astronomer, actual cosmologist, but he also wrote a couple of science fiction books, maybe more than a couple. I remember A for Andromeda, wonderful book, and also something called The Black Cloud. That's another great book that he wrote. Then you have writers like Robert Heinlein, who wrote Starship Troopers, Stranger in a Strange Land, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I mentioned Larry Niven. He wrote Ringworld. He co-wrote with Jerry Pournelle a moat, The Moat in God's Eye. Of course, that book that I referred to, the A Gift from Earth. Then classic science fiction by Jules Verne, the French author. Wonderful books that he wrote. H.G. Wells. He wrote The War of the Worlds. He wrote The Time Machine. The original science fiction author is Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, and so many other I can mention. William Gibson, Neuromancer, Cliff Simak, Way Station, interesting story, which I also read in the science fiction book club. More modern writers like Adrian Tchaikovsky, the Children of Time, the Children of Ruin, all that. That story. Um, I can Stanislav Lem, the Polish writer who wrote Solaris, Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Douglas Adams, I spoke about him yesterday, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Asimov, of course, I read Asimov, I read The Robots of Dawn, The Caves of Steel, all that. Asimov isn't that exciting from my perspective, but I did read many of his books. There's Philip K. Dick, there's Kurt Vonnegut, there's Cixin Liu, the Chinese guy who wrote the Three Body Problem trilogy. There's the Nexus trilogy somewhere here behind me by Ramez Nam. Then there's Andy Weir, The Martian, Project Hail Mary, and so on and so forth. So many authors that I could mention, so many books I could mention. But I hope I've given some kind of haphazard guide to science fiction, and I could make a 2 hour video about that. So yeah, it's my favorite genre. I really enjoyed a lot. And a related question by Nirab Karki. What's your favorite science fiction movie? Once again, I don't have one favorite science fiction movie. There are so many. And within science fiction movies, there are subgenres. There's science fiction horror, there is hard science fiction, there's fantasy science fiction, there is sci fi comedy, for example. One of my favorite movies is Mars Attacks. You should watch it. A great comedy, science fiction comedy. Another really wacky movie is The Fifth Element. Bruce Willis, Mila Jovovich, etc. Very funny movie. Hard science fiction. mm, the book that I mentioned from Arthur C. Clarke, 2001: A Space Odyssey, that was turned into a movie by Stanley Kubrick. That's a great movie. Then Alien. I think it may Alien, the original Alien from 1979 or something. That may well be perhaps the first science fiction movie I watched as a little kid. And a little kid should never watch a movie like that. It was frightening. Alien, the original Alien, with what's her name? The lady who was in Avatar, another science fiction movie. I forget her name. I forget names, but she did a great job. She's the last survivor with the cat, right, in that movie. And then there's the follow up, Aliens. So the first two or three movies in the Alien series were fantastic. Nowadays they're coming up with ridiculous nonsense. Then the Star Wars movies. So Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie, which came out in whatever year, 79 or whatever, that's another of the first science fiction movies I watched. I was a little kid. And when I saw this thing on the big screen, I thought Chewbacca was a gorilla. So Star Wars, Star Trek, it's not exactly a movie, it's a series on TV, but that Contact by Carl Sagan, that I watched. I watched it in the early 2000s, but I read the book in the mid 1990s. And it's so funny that when you read a book, you imagine the characters and what's happening, right? And I somehow the protagonist in Contact is a lady. I forget the name of the character, but I imagined that character as Jodie Foster. And eventually, when the movie was made, that character was Jodie Foster in the movie. So that was so. Yeah, that was interesting. Then Matrix, one of the great movies. Not the second and third one, the first one, Matrix. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, wonderful movies. Total Recall, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Event Horizon, science fiction horror. Blade Runner, wonderful atmospheric movie from the 1980s. Then you have The Planet of the Apes from the 1960s, I believe. Charlton Heston was there. Then The Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, a more recent movie with the main character is Caesar, right? The ape. Then The Martian that I mentioned in the book section, Andy Weir, that's a great movie also. Avatar I mentioned, very nice movie. Predator from the 1980s, Arnold Schwarzenegger again. A movie by John Carpenter, The Thing. Fantastic movie. Science fiction horror once again. Then Spielberg, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Then there's a movie, science fiction horror, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Another science fiction horror movie, The Fly. Then there's alien science fiction, Enemy Mine. There's a movie featuring Will Smith, Independence Day. There is a rather fantastical movie called Armageddon with Bruce Willis, in which you're in space but you can still walk as if you have gravity. There is that. There was Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. Yes, there was. I can remember other movies like District 9, Jurassic Park is great. The Abyss, about aliens underwater, under the oceans. There's a movie called Ex Machina about artificial intelligence and AI enabled robots. Interstellar, great movie, wonderful movie. And I could also give an honorable mention, The X Files, which is not a movie, but it's a series. I used to watch it as a kid, as a teenager. Mulder and Scully, that was good. So that's once again another haphazard, random bunch of recommendations of science fiction movies. I'm sure I can think of many more. That also could be another 1 hour video, but I'll stop over here. Okay, Monisha Biswas asks a very, very profound question. Why does the universe exist? Now, before I even attempt to answer it, please understand this question, the subject matter of this question, we're dealing with the realm of philosophy here, okay? Not science. This is bigger than science. This is philosophy. So why does the universe exist? That's a fun question to think about, to ponder. Imagine you are a neuron, a neuron cell. Look, we got this computer here, supercomputer. All of us have one. How we use it, it depends on us, but we all have one. The brain, the human brain, the most complicated machine or object that we know of in the known universe. That's the human brain. No, and it's made of neurons, trillions of hundreds of billions of neurons, maybe trillions of neurons, and the connections and synapses and all that. Imagine you are one of those neurons, and imagine in this hypothetical reality that the neurons can think and talk to each other. Let's say so the neurons are thinking that we are all here, sitting here, and we know there are so many of us. We inhabit such a vast universe. There are hundreds of billions of us. We can all communicate with each other. What's the purpose of this universe? So, as far as neurons are concerned, the universe is what is contained in the brain, and they have no idea of what's outside. They don't even know how large the universe is because it's hundreds of billions of them, right? So as far as they can see, there's neurons everywhere, and there are connections, and they can talk to each other, pass signals, and that's how they live their life. And maybe one of them wonders, what's the purpose of this universe? Why does this universe exist? So you are just a neuron inside a brain. Your purpose is you are part of the thinking machinery, and you're not aware of it. Right? Now, if you read science fiction, we were discussing science fiction. Douglas Adams, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. In that that book is existential philosophy disguised as science fiction comedy. So, in that book, the Earth was created as a supercomputer, and its purpose was to find the answer to the ultimate question. And the answer is 42. So, the Earth is an actual computer, supercomputer, a mega supercomputer, and all the beings that inhabit the Earth, they are part of the programming, and they're not aware of it, obviously, right? Now, what if the Earth is too small to perform certain calculations? Maybe we need something larger, maybe a galaxy, maybe the whole universe. So maybe the whole universe, perhaps, could be a computer designed by somebody to perform certain calculations. It will take a certain amount of time, maybe 20 billion years, perhaps. I don't know how long it will take. And then it will output some answer, and then its purpose is done. Maybe the universe is a computing machine, a calculating machine. It performs extraordinarily complicated calculations that may be extraordinarily complicated for us. But for the beings that designed this computer, it may not be that complicated. Or maybe it is complicated. That's why they had to design a supercomputer. So, look, these are all speculations. Do you understand? These are all speculations. We don't know why the universe exists, but we know that to perform very complicated calculations, you need larger and larger computers with more and more components. And some experiments need computers that are essentially as large as the universe. Or for example, if you want to detect gravitational waves of a certain amplitude, so right now we have LIGO, and it allows us to detect gravitational waves from black hole collisions, black hole neutron star mergers, and so on. And these collisions produce gravitational waves with extremely large amplitudes, like a tsunami. Right? A tsunami is a huge wave, but we would like to detect gravitational wave ripples, tiny little waves. To have a detector of that capability, the detector would probably need to be the size of the Milky Way or something, perhaps, or maybe the size of the solar system. I'm not sure. We can figure it out. We can work it out on the back of a napkin. That's the kind of calculation it is. But there you have it. So some experiments need very large uh, apparatuses, and some calculations need extraordinarily large computers. So maybe the universe itself is a computer, and it's performing some calculation which will take us a certain amount of time. And we all are familiar with the simulation hypothesis, which once again says that we are inside a simulation. This whole universe that we see is a simulation inside a computer. So maybe that's what it is. And it's a very plausible explanation about the origin of the universe. Yeah. So that could be the answer, perhaps. Maybe there are hyper intelligent beings, hyper intelligent pan dimensional beings who are running this simulation. The universe is a supercomputer, and we are part of the simulation. Maybe that's why it exists. I could give lots of different scenarios that could perhaps, possibly, potentially answer this question: why does the universe exist? But without the requisite amount of data, we can't satisfactorily answer the question, which is why the question and the subject matter are within the realm of philosophy, not science. But it's an interesting thought process to have. You can go in multiple directions. I spoke about the simulation hypothesis. I spoke about the universe possibly being a supercomputer. There could be other scenarios also that could potentially answer this question, but which is the right answer, we don't quite know. But it's a question one should ponder from time to time and actually try and work it out using thought experiments. That's what we just did here. Okay, Stephen 6050 says, as we know, the universe, um, as the universe expands, the distance between galaxies increases. Okay, so by this, does it mean that the distance between the Earth and the other planets also increases? So this is an interesting question. So we have to understand that we are dealing with Hubble's law over here. What is Hubble's law? Let me try and put that on the screen. Give me a second. I'll have to type it over here. Hubble's law. So Hubble's constant is h. Okay, and it is approximately equal to roughly 70 kilometers per second per mega parsec, mpc. So let me add this banner and let me put it over here on the screen. Okay, so the Hubble constant is roughly equal to 70, give or take, kilometers per second per mega parsec. Okay, now what is 1 megaparsec? First of all, we know what a kilometer is, we know what a second is. What's a megaparsec? So a megaparsec is approximately 3 times 10 raised to 6 light years, 3 million light years. It's a unit of distance, a very large unit of distance, about 3 million light years. That's 1 megaparsec. So what does this equation tell us? This equation tells us that a galaxy which is 1 megaparsec away, or 3 million light years away, will move away from us at a speed of 70 kilometers per second. It also tells us that if a galaxy is 10 megaparsecs away, which is 30 million light years away, then it will move away from us at 700 kilometers per second. And if a galaxy is 100 megaparsecs away, it will move away from us at 7,000 kilometers per second, and so on and so forth. You get it, right? So the further a galaxy is away from us, the faster it will be moving away from us. That's what it tells us. So let me remove that and we come back to the question. Okay. Now, this applies at the largest scales in the universe, of the order of megaparsecs and more. But when it comes to very small distances like the solar system and its radius, it's tiny, it's minuscule compared to a megaparsec. It doesn't quite apply there. So the expansion of the universe, it becomes apparent and visible, and becomes relevant at very large distance scales. At short distance scales, it is the force of gravity that overpowers whatever is causing the expansion of the universe. So gravity is a very weak force, but whatever is causing the expansion of the universe is probably weaker than gravity at short distances, short scales. Few light years, 10, 20 light years, 50 light years, million light years also. So because of that, the distance between the sun and the earth and all that is not changing. It won't be affected by the expansion of the universe. And the thing that's causing the expansion of the universe, it's called dark energy, which accounts for about 70% of the mass energy of the universe. And this expansion of the universe is not even going to affect the gravitational relationship between the Milky Way, our home galaxy, and the nearest large galaxy, Andromeda. Andromeda and Milky Way are coming towards each other, and in about 1.5 billion years, they will merge. not collide but merge very messily, but eventually they'll merge into a very large elliptical galaxy. So the dark energy, the expansion of the universe, the Hubble law, all that will not be able to counteract that. It only works at extremely large distance scales. All right, that's the deal. Okay, Ketan Lad 5451 says, I've been watching your podcast for a year now. Thanks for doing. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, sir. Uh, my first ever question on YouTube. I've read somewhere that the quantum entanglement and spooky action at a distance may be due to a micro wormhole that gets created between the two particles. If that is true, then would it be possible to create two quantum entangled devices or gates that would create a larger wormhole that one can travel through? Has there been any scientific research on the subject? Okay. Um, so this kind of research about entangled wormholes, I think Juan Maldacena has written about this. The idea was proposed at least a decade ago by Leonard Susskind, one of the pioneers of string theory, and so on. So what we're talking about over here, entanglement and wormholes, is from very different kinds of physics. When we're talking about quantum entanglement, we're talking about quantum mechanics. Spooky action at a distance is what Einstein supposedly called it. And the very crude, rough analogy is the pair of gloves, right? I have a pair of gloves. I pack them to the two gloves separately. I ship one to Moscow. I ship the other one to Washington. And when my friend in Moscow opens one package and he finds, let's say, a right-handed glove, he knows that my other friend in Washington, she has got a left-handed glove. That sort of thing, right? So the moment you see one, you know exactly what is the state of the other one. And let's say I've sent it not to a person in Washington, D.C., but I've sent it to somebody in the Andromeda Galaxy, which is 1.25 million light years away, or whatever the distance is. The moment the person in Andromeda, or the being in Andromeda, opens the glove, the package, and sees a left-handed glove, it knows immediately that the other one, wherever it is in Milky Way, is a right-handed glove. So the two objects are entangled. Knowing the state of one, you know immediately what the state of the other is. That's a very crude, rough analogy of quantum entanglement, which is when you produce a pair of particles that are inherently entangled, which means that the two particles, their state can only be described by a single wave function. And then that's how entanglement goes. Now that's quantum mechanics, which is one of the most successful theories in the history of physics. Extremely successful. All our technologies today, most of them, they are based on quantum mechanics. I mean, we would not be having this conversation, telecommunications, all that, without quantum technologies based in quantum mechanics. So we know how to use quantum mechanics. And entanglement is one of the strange phenomena at the heart of quantum mechanics. Now, that's the physics of the hyper microscopic world, subatomic world, atoms, molecules, subatomic particles, uh, and so on. Now, when we talk about wormholes, we're talking about general relativity, which is another extremely successful branch of physics, theoretical physics, but it operates at the largest scales in the cosmos. And general relativity and quantum mechanics are incompatible. There are fundamental problems within the two that you cannot reconcile one with the other. So now, and yet, when you look at let's say the simplest black hole solution, Einstein came up with general relativity 1915, 1916, and he has the Einstein field equations. And when you solve the simplest problem in when it comes to the Einstein field equations, which is a uncharged, non-rotating spherical black hole, which is the Schwarzschild solution, you get a solution with two black holes connected by a wormhole, essentially, which seems to be a curiosity, but we have two black holes connected by a wormhole. Now, if you were to do a thought experiment where you entangle two black holes, because a black hole is kind of like a like um it's almost like one of the fundamental particles, right? A black hole, in a way. If you were to entangle two black holes and you work out the physics in math, it's like they describe a geometry which is a wormhole, that sort of thing. So yeah, there could be some kind of connection between entanglement and wormholes, whether it's a micro wormhole, probably not a micro wormhole, a proper Einstein Rosen bridge. Uh, so that's the kind of thing that we have. It's a very interesting avenue in theoretical physics. Not sure if it can resolve the fundamental problems when it comes to trying to combine general relativity and quantum mechanics, but very interesting uh, avenue of research. So this is all theoretical right now. We don't know how to create two quantum entangled devices. We know how to create entangled photons or entangled sets of particles and all that. We kind of know how to do that. Uh, but how to create an entangled set of black holes? We don't even know if black holes really exist. Okay, we see uh, objects that seem to fulfill all the criteria of being a black hole. Cygnus 61 is the first one we discovered, and much more. So black holes most likely exist. Okay, but we have no access to a black hole. We don't want to have access to a black hole in a lab because it'll eat everything possibly. So how do you create entangled black holes and so on? And once again, wormholes are hypothetical, are theoretical objects. No one's ever observed a wormhole. It's possible that quasars or what appears to be black holes may actually be wormholes. It's very possible, but we have no idea of knowing if it's true or not. So wormholes again are theoretical objects. We don't know if they exist. If they exist, there are all kinds of problems that would want them to the wormhole to snap shut. So unless you place some kind of exotic material like negative mass or something inside a wormhole, or a cosmic string inside a wormhole, it won't stay open. And even then, will it be traversable or not? We don't know. So when we're talking about traversable wormholes, we're talking about engineering actually. And when it comes to these matters, we are nowhere near starting any engineering projects on them. Okay, it's all theoretical right now. So wonderful question, very interesting topic, but we are in the infancy of research in this matter. Okay, Yajnavalka says, what are the negative effects of microplastics found in breast milk and testicles? Also, sperm count is declining among men over the past few decades. Do you think it's worrying? It's very worrying, very problematic. It's one of the factors that's contributing to declining birth rates. Uh, Low sperm count, low sperm quality, poor sperm quality, decreasing testosterone, all problematic, very problematic on a countrywide, nationwide scale, on a culture-wide scale, on a global scale, extremely problematic. Because low birth rates, you may say that India needs low birth rates. We have 1.4 billion people, etc. I understand, I agree. We have too many people. We need to have ideally a population of 300 million, which is almost one fourth, one fifth of what we are. So, what do you do? Do we have everybody have just one child? Then we will end up with a disaster like China. What happens with declining birth rates is that the population starts aging, the median age starts increasing rapidly. Imagine, I mean, look at Japan. What's happened to Japan? Their total fertility rate is 1.1, 1 point whatever it is. By 2050, the average age of the age of the average person in Japan will be around 60 or maybe more. Imagine a nation where everybody is 60 plus. The average person is 60 plus. Where will you have the energy, the vitality that you need for a nation to progress? It's gonna be a disaster. Very few children. Very soon the nation will be in shambles. The same thing is happening to China. So if you want to decrease your population from, let's say, 1.4 billion to 300 million, you have to plan this decline in population over 2 centuries. Otherwise, you're not thinking right. So this low sperm count, low sperm quality, low testosterone levels is very concerning and very dangerous, especially for a nation like India. I mean, for every nation, of course, but we are looking at this from our perspective, right? So we have to ensure that India's total fertility rate stays around 2.1. Right now, it's already 2.0. In some states, it's 1.7, 1.6. So it's warning signs right now for India, and a lot of factors contribute to this. I'll not go into that now. Let's talk about the microplastics. Uh, Look, microplastics are when plastic plastic, whatever, plastic is used everywhere, right? Cups and disposable containers and plastic bags for grocery shopping, all kinds of stuff. It's eventually dumped in the garbage, and it ends up in the oceans, and then it degrades over time. Degrades, and then it breaks up, but it doesn't. The molecules remain, right? So it eventually over time it becomes very small. Very small particles emerge, like a millimeter, half a millimeter in size, maybe less than, whatever. Roughly, that sort of dimensions. That's called microplastics, and microplastics are everywhere now apparently. And they are discovering microplastics in people's brains, in testicular tissue, in breast tissue, etc. Now this will cause all kinds of problems, hormonal problems, blockages, whatnot. Plastics, see, plastic is manufactured through a certain process of distillation. When you have crude oil, you put that in a very large tubular container kind of thing, very tall thing, and you heat it to a certain temperature, and then you distill it. So the highest, the lightest one is something, and then you have at the bottom you have bitumen, which is tar, and you have diesel somewhere in the middle, and so on. So that's how we can separate the different kinds, the different kinds of uh, hydrocarbon materials that come out of it. Some of it becomes aviation fuel or kerosene, and some of it is, the lightest one I think is gasoline or petrol, and somewhere in between you have what becomes eventually is converted into plastic. So there's all kinds of chemicals in this, phyto whatever or something, I don't remember what the term is. Various kinds of chemicals that can affect your endocrine system, your hormones, that can create hormonal problems. Some of the chemicals in these plastics could create irritation in the body, which could lead to inflammation, a permanent state of inflammation, which can lead to cancer or other problems. Then if you have microplastics in breast tissue, then they could lead to blockages in the milk ducts or whatever, or it could have the leaching of these chemicals into the body of the infant who's going to drink milk, and so on. When you have this in testicles, you may have testicular cancer, you may have testicular blockages, or inflammation and cancer, whatnot. So it's overall a disastrous situation. It's not good at all. And the solution is to stop the use of plastics, but plastic is so convenient, right? Plastic, we need it for everything, from packaging to home delivery of whatever stuff, and just about everything. It's something I suppose we're going to have to live with somehow. The Romans lived with lead in their water. Now we are dealing with plastic in our water supply and whatnot. So there we are. Okay, geopolitical Dubey says, why is cricket so unpopular in East and Southeast Asia? It's England's national sport. Then why does England not promote it in Europe and America? England is as a has-been nation. It's no longer a powerful entity. It's a second or third rate geopolitical power, unfortunately, right? Since 1956 or whatever, 56, 57, 58. So they don't have much of hard power left. And when you don't have much hard power, your soft power becomes negligible, and it is of no use. So England doesn't do much to promote its culture, its national sport. Uh, in Europe, in America, I think Romania plays some form of cricket. In the US, you have Indian and subcontinental origin people who play cricket, and they have recently the US team defeated Pakistan. That was funny, and so on. But overall, it's not very popular in Southeast Asia, East Asia, because these regions were never colonized by England. But let me tell you, let me show you something interesting, something really interesting. Shall we? Uh, let's go to Google search, which we haven't opened today. Okay, we have Google search open here, and let's search for Kilikiti. What is Kilikiti? One wonders. Let's open this Kilikiti. So one second. So Kilikiti. Let's open this. It is Samoan cricket or kirikiti. It's one of several forms of the game of cricket. It originates in Samoa. English missionaries introduced this game in the early 19th century, and it spread throughout Polynesia. And this is what the bats look like. They don't look like your standard cricket bats. They look like some kind of weapon or somewhat similar to a baseball bat. And it's played in Polynesia and among Polynesian populations. That's what a bat looks like. Jock Livingston, Australian cricketer. He is photographed doing this. What are the rules? Let's see if there are rules. The rules of the rules of Kilikiti are flexible. Indeed, the majority of reports written on the game simply say that the rules can only be known by those playing. So there's a batting team, a fielding team, a pitch, sometimes of concrete. The ball alternates between the two bowlers, one at each end of the pitch, and there are two wicket keepers. There is no limit to team size, and teams are made up of whoever turns up, regardless of gender and age. Tourist accounts mention that strangers are often welcomed, and most players are typically all rounders. A Kilikiti game is a multi day community event full of singing, dancing, and feasting, and so on. And the one universal rule is that the host team forfeits if it cannot provide enough food. If you want to look at images of the sport, let's see images. So you have, as you can see, a couple of ladies playing kilikiti, um, and a game in progress. And you can see the native dress that they wear. Your left arm fast bowler, various players, and so on. So this is the game of Kilikiti. I had come across this, I don't know how many years ago, but I thought that this was something really funny. So yeah, just sharing this knowledge, this information. Okay, next question. Okay, next question is by Imran Naimi. The question is, why do Pashtun people not want to say that Pashto language has 40% Sanskrit? The other 60% is Arabic Persian words, uh, but the remaining is Sanskrit. The following, this is very interesting. The following Pashto words might be of Sanskrit or Indian origin, in my opinion. Likhil, writing. Dubidal, drowning. Yeah, dubna, right? In Hindi. Darigam, I fear. Dar. Sukhale, calm. Ganal, counting. Ganita is math, the arithmetic, right? In Sanskrit. Sukhale, jiba, tongue. Jibha, right? In Sanskrit. Muska, smile. It's like muskan in Persian. Dir, a lot. Lug, few. Manel, accepting. Patang, butterfly. In Sanskrit, it's Chitra Patangaha, right? Or Patangaha. Likhale, writer. Roti, bread. Roti is roti everywhere. Pan, leaf. Anguta, finger. That comes from Sanskrit once again. Piradi, Paradesh, stranger. Well, Paradesh is Sanskrit once again. Samandar, Samudra, river. Sresht, Srishti is nature. Gurel, seeing. Largai, Lakdi is wood. We understand that, of course. Satel is keeping. Dak is fool. Sima is face. Milgar in Hindi, milna wala friend, okay. Kali is village. Dagar is field. Bahar is out. Andikhna is distress. Bana is shape. Bindi is okra, okay. Pata is address. Larai is fighting in Pashto. Palil is feeding. Okay. That's okay. Okay, I can see that. G1 is life. Good God, really. Bulil is saying Band is blocked. Chatri is umbrella. Comes from the word Kshatra in Sanskrit. Dana is seed. It's incredible how many of the words in Pashto have clear Sanskrit origin, and we can see the similarities between these words and let's say languages like Hindi as well. So it's really interesting, and the question is, um, the question you're asking is, why do Pashtun people not want to say that Pashto language is 40% Sanskrit, and the other 60% is loan words from Arabic and Persian, but 60% Sanskrit? Look, it's very clear that there's a tremendous amount of Sanskrit origin to many of the words in Pashto. Why do people who speak Pashto, why do Pashtun people not want to admit this, that the origin is Sanskrit? It's because of what they've been taught for the past 1000 years, that we are the descendants of some kind of Jewish tribe, one of the lost tribes of Israel. So most Pashtun people they believe, they genuinely believe. It's not their fault they believe it. They believe that they are of Jewish origin. That's what they've been told. Why they've been told this? Look, Gandhar was the first part of Bharat to fall to the Turks, and then it went through hell essentially, and now this is the society that's emerged. Um, so the true natives of Afghanistan, who who have been the natives for thousands of years, are the Pashtun people, and their origin is definitely subcontinental, not Turkic. But they have been conditioned, brainwashed, or whatever, into believing that they are not Turks but Jews of Jewish origin. And because of this conditioning, mental conditioning, and this belief, they will not agree that Pashto is of Indian or subcontinental origin, and the root vocabulary is Sanskrit vocabulary. They won't admit it, unfortunately. I don't blame them for it, but that's what it is. Unfortunate, but I'm so grateful to you for bringing out this entire list of common words, uh, and I really appreciate that very much. So thank you. Okay, Balram Putin says, what's the difference between a freedom fighter and a nationalist? When I search on MS Edge for Mr. Gandhi, it says Indian freedom fighter, and it shows people like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Veer Savarkar, Bhagat Singh, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Chandrasekhar Azad as nationalists and these are the people who actually and genuinely led us in the freedom struggle. So, what's the difference between a freedom fighter in the Indian context and a nationalist in the Indian context or global context? Nationalism is seen as evil today in the West because I've given this example before. Let's go back 2 millennia to the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire controlled much of Europe, North Africa, all that, do you think it would have been happy with the rise of nationalism in, let's say, Judea, in Thrace, in Carthage, in Germania? In Gaul, which is France? Do you think the Romans would have been happy with the rise of nationalism in various places? No. Nationalism would have been a bad word during the Roman Empire. Everyone is a Roman citizen. Be happy with that. Don't ever try to be nationalistic. Nationalism is evil. So that's the Roman Empire. Today you have the US Empire. They control Europe. EU is one nation essentially. And nationalism, French nationalism, German nationalism, evil, evil. No, no, no. We are all members of the EU so that everybody can be controlled. So nationalism is evil. And nationalist is a bad word in the West. Okay. They want it's become very Marxist. They want the collective to be prioritized over the individual, the nation, and the individual to be prioritized over the family. That's sort of craziness. So nationalism is bad in today's Western context. So they portray people like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who took up arms against the British, as a nationalist because nationalism is evil. They portray Veer Savarkar as evil. They portray Bhagat Singh as evil, and so on. Because these people, they wanted to put up an actual fight against the British, an 1857 kind of fight, as opposed to a fake fight where you do nothing, passive resistance. That's not resistance at all. So that's why they portray these people as nationalists, because nationalist is a bad word. It has negative connotations in the West. And you will see certain Indian textbooks that outright say that people like Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, etc., are terrorists. Okay? So that's all about mentally brainwashing the Indian population. And it's very successful. And Mr. Gandhi, of course, was an Indian freedom fighter. So as long as you are passive and non-violent and you actually do nothing, you are a freedom fighter. Because despite you not fighting at all. But if you actually put up a fight, you're a nationalist, really bad. So that's the kind of brainwashing that you find in Indian textbooks and across the internet globally, to put forth a certain narrative, to keep Indians, keep on to perpetuate the sheep-like mentality of Indians. Ahimsa. Don't fight. Don't put up resistance. Be passive. Be non-violent. Accept your fate. Be sheep. That's what, right? Don't be leaders. Be sheep. So that's why this entire narrative exists. And most Indians have followed this hook, line, and sinker, very sadly. Yajnavalka says, would it be correct to say that Hindu ethics and morality is exceptionally good compared to ethics of all other non-pagan and pagan monotheistic and polytheistic societies, Greco-Roman ethics, Han Chinese ethics, Aboriginal Australian ethics, Native American ethics, etc.? If yes, what explains this exceptionalism? Also, what explains the seemingly widespread nature of sexual slavery in many civilizations? For example, Greco-Roman civilization, Han Chinese civilization, etc., except the Hindu civilization. This seems to paint a bleak picture of mankind, doesn't it? Well, this is a very controversial topic, but I agree with you. Yes, we have historically had the most superior ethics. Okay, let's substantiate this claim with some facts. Slavery, human sacrifice. Let's take these two things. Did India, Bharat, Bharatvarsh, Aryavart, etc., ever had slavery? Ever have slavery? Is slavery something that's accepted in our civilization, in our culture? No, absolutely not. We've never had slavery. The only times we had slavery when we were under foreign occupation, either the Turks or the Europeans, the Christians. That's when we had slavery. When India was free and self-governed by Indian kings, queens, whatever, emperors, we never had slavery. Ever, ever. Did Greece, ancient Greece, have slavery? Of course it had slavery. It's well known. Look it up. Did Rome have slavery? Of course there was slavery in Rome. It was rampant. Alexander the Greek. Which city did he destroy? Thebes, was it? So he besieges this city of Thebes, and after a certain period of time, the siege succeeds and the walls are broken, and then he's so upset that the siege lasted so long, and the thing is there that he has a significant amount of the number of the population executed, and the rest is sold into slavery. Slavery was part of Greek culture. The Greek culture, Hellenic culture, is very similar in a lot of ways to Indian culture, to the older Vedic culture. But we never had slavery. They had slavery. The Romans had slavery, rampant slavery. That's two examples in the Indo-European world. The Germans had slavery. The Vikings had slavery. The Gauls had slavery. The Celts had slavery. Everybody had slavery. We did not have it. The Chinese had slavery, of course. Human sacrifice. The Greeks had human sacrifice. The Romans had human sacrifice. The Celts had human sacrifice. Let's not even talk about Carthage. Let's not even go there. The Germanic tribes had human sacrifice. The Vikings had human sacrifice. The Britons had human sacrifice. Everybody had it. India, you cannot imagine the horror of human sacrifice. Most strong taboo you can ever imagine. Chinese, well, not sure if you had human sacrifice, but executions on the scale of hundreds of thousands and millions was quite common. So once again, we have very different ethics. And when it comes to things like horrific things like sexual slavery, we can't even imagine that in our culture, right? But it was there in other cultures. So we, overall, it is a fact. Look, I have now whatever claims I've made here, whatever I've said, why don't you, if you're not sure if it's true or not, don't ask me for sources. Use Google and find your sources. Okay, a little bit of work you have to do, right? If you want to learn something. So please don't ask me for sources for what I just said. Look it up. All the information is available in public, not behind any firewall, any paywall. Everything is available in the public domain. You just have to do a little bit of work and type in some search terms in Google or your favorite search engine. So please do that. So it's clear that we had superior ethics and morality, but we had insufficient levels of ruthlessness and barbarity at certain times. During the Ashokan Mauryan times, we had sufficient ruthlessness. Not barbarity, but ruthlessness. Oh, absolutely. Ashok was the man, wasn't he? During times of rulers like Kanishka the Great, uh, Samudragupta the Great, and so the Cholas, Rajendra Chola the Great, we were not devoid of ruthlessness at all. But there were times when certain things went wrong overall. So yes, we had the most superior ethics, no question about it. Today, the West claims superiority based on certain other factors, but we know what the truth is, right? So it does indeed paint a bleak picture of humankind, mankind. It does, unfortunately. It does. And Yajnavalka once again says, should Hindu religion become aggressively engaged in proactive conversion both in India and in the entire world, at least with respect to people who are themselves followers of religions which are engaged in proactive conversion? Look, why is it that we are not supposed to proselytize? We are not supposed to engage in conversion activities. We're supposed to just keep on absorbing this nonsense. The two big religions in the world, Christianity, Islam, they aggressively proselytize, right? They seek to convert more and more people into the flock. Why shouldn't Hinduism do that? Why not? We should. I think we should do that. And to me, I don't care about a person's skin color or ethnicity, but the culture, the religion is something that would matter more, in my opinion. For example, Kamala Harris is half Indian. Does she feel Indian to you at all? Tulsi Gabbard has 0% in the Indian ethnicity, but she's way more Indian than someone like Kamala Harris or Babe Jindal or what's her name, Nikki Haley. These Bobby Jindal, Nikki Haley are 100% pure Indian, right? Ethnicity wise. But are they Indian culturally at all? Do they feel Indian to you? They don't. Tulsi Gabbard feels Indian despite not having Indian ethnicity. So culture matters, DNA doesn't matter. So I think we need to bring more people into our cultural umbrella. I think we should do that. But it takes a lot of funding to do this. We have people who are very wealthy. We have a tremendous amount of funding overall available to us, but we don't use it in that direction. That's the unfortunate thing. So I think the Hindu religion should get become aggressively engaged in proactive conversion activities. Why not? We're doing something good. We saw we have superior ethics, right? So we should bring in more people into our camp, essentially, into our dharmic umbrella, into the dharmic fold. We should do that. I agree. But you need funding for that, and you need some leadership for that. You need leadership. Leadership is the most important thing in all of this. Do we have the right kind of leaders? Do we have the right kind of leaders? Or do we have fake wannabe leaders who pretend to be leaders and who have no leadership quality? Introspect about that. Ramalakshmi says, men and women sports. So men and women compete separately in sports because of their physical aspects in most games, football, wrestling, weightlifting, etc. But I'm curious, why is there segregation in games such as chess or shooting, etc., which requires more thinking and focus? And that's a very pertinent, relevant question. For example, in the case of a sport like chess, what's the deal? Let's take a look at the rankings in chess, shall we? So let's uh, go to ratings.fide.com, shall we? Ratings.fide.com. And here you have ratings, the top 100 players. I think this is the open ratings. So Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru, etc. Let me just go back. We have the open ratings. Magnus Carlsen is number one with a rating of 2832. Who's number 100? Number 100 is a guy called Mamedov Rauf from Azerbaijan, 2637. 2637. Who's the top rated woman? She is 2633, below the top 100 men. So for some reason, the top rated woman has a rating that's below the 100th rated man in chess. Okay, and then we can look at the women's ratings if you want and all that, but I'm not going to do that. So the top rated woman is below the 100th rated man for some reason. So there seems to be something in chess that for some reason men perform better than women. The top 100 men uh, are higher, are better at chess than the top ranked woman for some reason. Should not be that way, but it is that way for some reason. So I think the former woman world number one Judith Polgar had said that we need to do away with the segregation and have everybody compete at the same level. Maybe something will change. I don't know. Uh, I don't think there should be a physical factor when it comes to a game like chess. Men, women should be able to compete on the same level. But for some reason, there exists this disparity. So maybe we should trial something like this. A few years, have everybody compete irrespective of gender on the same level, and let's see how it goes. That could be tried. Once again, when it comes to shooting, whether it is skeet shooting, rifle or pistol or whatever, or archery. Archery, you would need some strength. I think the male shoulder is way stronger than the female shoulder. But when it comes to things like shooting, when it comes to rifles or pistols or whatever, I don't think it makes any difference whether you're a male or a female. I'm sure that females can outperform males, at least in those sports. So I think there should not be segregation in sports like shooting. Why is there segregation? Probably for historical reasons. So even in games or sports where physical strength is not really a factor, I think historically men used to compete more. Let's go back 100 years, 1900. I think women were marginalized in Western society at the time, right? So even in a sport like shooting or whatever, it would be males who would compete. 90 males versus like 10 women. And that's why it made sense for women who did not get so many opportunities to be allowed to compete in a separate category. And I think that's the tradition that's continued until now. So gender segregation in sports makes sense in boxing, in mixed martial arts, in wrestling, in a variety of sports, track and field, all that. But probably not so much in chess or shooting, etc. So maybe one should do away with those uh, with the segregation in chess and shooting and see how it goes. Probably women may do much better than what most people would expect in this. Okay, the feminist slayer says, my mother has a serious medical condition. In the report, the doctor concluded she won't be in this world for long. I'm very sorry to hear that, sir. Some other doctor had indicated this 4 years ago. Excuse me. Thinking about this, my whole graduation years went into depression. My relatives are trying to subjugate me. I don't have any job. I just have an obsolete degree of BSc and don't have the necessary life skills currently to get a job in the market. I was just good at academics. Should I try for a government job to escape from the situation as early as possible and then plan my life further? I'm from a lower middle class family. Also, my mother burned my college degree. I have never felt this type of agony in my life before. How could a mother do this to a son? So, yeah, that's terrible to hear. I'm very sorry as to what you have gone through. Yeah, how could a mother do this to her son? Mothers should not do that to their sons, but not everybody is fortunate enough to have good parents, unfortunately. There are historical examples of bad parenting. uh, Queen Victoria was a notoriously bad mother, the empress of India, the biggest drug smuggler in history. She was a notoriously bad mother. She was extremely cruel to her son Edward, I believe his name was, who became the next king. She was really cruel to him. So that's an example of a historical bad mother. The mother of George Washington, the first president of the US, she was very cruel to her son. She publicly humiliated him so many times, and She supported his enemies. She supported the British over her son, and so on. So she was another very cruel mother. So there have been examples of this. It's something that doesn't happen often, but look, it is what it is. It's the cards the gods have dealt you with, and you just accept it and move on. So, uh, so first thing is, there's no point wallowing in self pity. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Understand the situation coolly, dispassionately, and find a solution. So now, the first thing you have to do is find a job. Your main the main problem in your life right now is that you don't have a job and you don't have an income, which makes you vulnerable to all kinds of things. The first thing you have to do is get a job and get an income. That way you become independent of others. You don't have to depend on anybody else. So get a job. First thing, whatever jobs available, you can get a government job, you can get some other job temporarily, whatever it takes. Get yourself an income and become independent. That way nobody can subjugate you and nobody can do a thing to you. You become independent. Once you become financially independent, then it may take you some time to to position yourself in your life into where you really want it to be. That may take time, but that's life. Look, everybody, some people get all the luck. Maybe it's unfair, and some people who are good are unlucky, and that's also unfair. But look, you can't blame luck. You have to do the best with whatever you've got in life. um, so I would say, be strong mentally. First thing is to get yourself a job and get yourself an income, so that nobody can subjugate you or do whatever they want to do. And then, once you have that, then you can plan your next moves, and it may take you some time to get where you want to be in life. 5 years, 10 years may take. So what? That's life. Okay, so go for it. Be strong, be mentally strong, and at the end of the day, don't allow anybody to subjugate you and take advantage of you. Become independent, and uh, do the best that you can in life. I'm sure you'll do well, provided you're mentally strong and you keep your emotions out of the picture and think coolly, dispassionately, strategically, and think long term. All the best, sir. All the best. I really wish you the best. Parth says, please tell me how to study and from where. I'm having my JEE mains in January, first attempt in April, second attempt in IIT paper in June or July. How to complete syllabus in 6 or 7 months? Since you're also from science background, kindly tell, is it possible, and how to kill distractions? Please help. Resources also. Look, I am not very familiar with IIT, JEE, etc. But what I can tell you is I can give you an overall set of principles on how to deal with this. 6 7 months, definitely possible, provided you have a reasonable background in the subject. uh, Look, JEE is about clearing an exam, right? It's not about really acquiring the entire width and breadth and depth of knowledge that you otherwise would need to have. All you need to learn is how to crack the exam. So I would say that you can um, you need to acquire the past few years question papers, if such a thing is available for JEE, or you can enroll in something like an academy. If I'm sure they have something with JEE, right? I'm sure it'll cost money, but that's one thing you can do. The main thing is you have to solve lots and lots of problems, solve lots and lots of exam papers, and just learn how to clear the exam. That's it. Don't try to acquire the deepest and broadest knowledge in the thing. It's about being very strategic and just learning how to clear the exam. That's all it is. That's what all the JEE is. So that's what you can do. 6 7 months, if you have that much time, it's definitely enough to do that, provided you have a reasonable background in the subject. How to kill distractions? You have to change your environment to kill distractions. It's like, when someone wants to lose weight, their nutritionist, dietitian, whatever doctor will come to their house. They will open their fridge, open all the drawers, and remove all the junk food and throw it in the dustbin, in the waste bin, right? And replace all of that with healthy food. The same thing you have to do with your distractions. If you have distractions on your phone, delete all those apps. If you have still a distraction with your phone, get yourself a dumb phone, not a smartphone. If you have people who are distracting you, try and distance yourself from those people. If you So whatever it is, you have to remove those distractions physically from the environment that you are in. and then you can focus. So that's what you need to do. That's what I can say in brief. All the best, sir. All the best. Okay, I will take a couple of questions from the live chat. A very small number of questions from the live chat because we've already gone past 2 hours, 10 minutes. It is very difficult to explain Gödel's incompleteness theorem in just 2 or 3 minutes. Maybe next time I'll do that, but I do appreciate the question. Uh, okay. Mm, Bobby Eapen says, "Did you hear about the several thousand years old Tamil bell found in New Zealand?" Yes, I've heard about it. I'm not sure if it's several thousand years old, but it's definitely an ancient bell that they have found in New Zealand. How did it get there? We're not quite sure. Maybe, see, we were travelers, right? We were India is the oldest known maritime civilization, and Indians were seafarers who traveled far and wide. Indians have been living on the east coast of Africa for centuries, thousands of years probably. And if you could go all the way to East Africa, you could go all the way to New Zealand and Australia as well. And we know that Indians reached Australia about 5,000 years before today, because we can see the genetic imprint of Indians, of subcontinental DNA among the Aboriginal DNA, Aboriginal population today. Roughly 10% of the Aboriginal DNA is of Indian origin. So if Indians reached Australia, New Zealand isn't too far away. So somehow we reached there, and the bell has Tamil inscriptions, which would say that it's not like 5,000 years old, maybe sometime somewhere in the past 2,000 years. So I've heard of it vaguely. I don't remember the details, but really interesting uh, discovery, and kind of adds one more layer to the picture, right? Okay, let's take maybe one more question. Yes, India won second gold in the chess Olympiad. So was it the girls, the women who won? Not sure. I can see some really funny comments. All right, I won't take them up. But yeah, I'm really glad India won this second gold in the chess Olympiad. India is gonna be a superpower in chess. Ansh Mittal says, "I'm not able to have a beard even at the age of 23. What to do?" Forget it. How does it matter? Look, some people, it doesn't matter. I know that when you want something, and when something isn't available, then you really want it, right? There are people who have wonderful curly hair, and you will see them going and buying hair straighteners. Why? And then you have people who have straight hair who will buy hair curlers. Why? You have people who have thick beards who want a less thick beard. There are people who can't really grow too much of a beard who want a full beard. So whatever it is that we don't have, we desire that. My point is, move on in life. What matters is what you do with your life, how successful you are, how much of an impact you have on society, how much money you earn, and how much all of that. That is what matters in life. If you can't grow a beard, it's a genetic thing or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You go to Mongolia, you go to China, you go to Japan, you go to Korea, most people can't grow a full beard. Do they have a big complex about that? They don't. It doesn't matter in life. Okay. I don't think Elon Musk is capable of growing a full beard. He's got, well, it doesn't matter, is my point. All right. Don't think too much about it. Go out there and succeed in life. All right. And with this, I think I already spoke about the Tirupati Prasad issue. It is unacceptable. All right. And something needs to do about this. The people who are responsible for this need to be brought to justice. Okay. With this, I'm going to end today's session. Thank you so much for all the questions you asked. As always, very interesting questions. And let's next weekend, I will not have a I won't have the live streams because I'm traveling, but I'm going to release a bunch of podcasts the the next 10 days or so. The whole backlog of podcasts that I've not released, I'm going to release those with a interval of 2 3 days. Okay, so that's what you can look forward to the next week or two, and the next weekend I'm going to be back on the live streams. So until then, thank you so much once again for all the questions, and keep asking questions, keep raising your standards, and I'll see you reasonably very soon. Okay, until then, take care. Bye bye.